you, Peter Barrett, for your excellent presentation. My name's Erica Parn. I'm from Birmingham City University. I find that it's very difficult to get the right impact or message to the industry, in particular for designers. So are you looking to actually integrate some of the work that you're doing through professional bodies? Because as I'm an architectural technologist from my background, I know how busy we can tend to get in practice, and we tend to work with our own deadlines and our own regulations. So I think probably looking at professional bodies and getting a sort of feedback loop to the designers from there would be a practical way of getting impact.
Yeah, you're right. Because the thing behind your question is that it's really hard to get people to take things on and change what they've been doing for years, and that's true. So I've been doing some work with the RIBA, but my mental model of how to achieve change is actually that if it's client-driven, if it's user-driven, if it's policy-driven, then the construction industry tends to react really positively to the challenge. And so I'm trying to do it on multiple levels, but the RIBA is one approach, and teachers is another approach. They've been really, really interested. And then at the policy level, as I say, the OECD, the World Bank, the departments for education in various countries have been interested. And then if we could change standards so they looked more holistically, and in relation to schools in particular, the requirements for school buildings became more balanced, then that would be great. And by more balanced, I mean that they tend not to mention learning. They tend to be orientated about other things. We've looked through the criteria for school buildings, and there's quite a few things on the naturalness aspects, but after that, they tend to talk about flexibility, open to the public, various aspects, and they don't really focus strongly on the whole learning process. Now there's some evidence. I think they could do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have three requests for questions or comments. So in that order, first Dr. Olli Niemi, please.
Yes, Olli Niemi from University of Properties of Finland. In your presentation was perfect. One was lacking, I think, and the acoustic environment. If your teaching is learning discussions, and if you don't understand, or if the others are disturbing you, it ruins the whole situation. And it is not in your list. You actually, it was in the beginning, but then you excluded it. Why?
Okay, we excluded it because it didn't show up as being a factor that impacted as strongly on learning as the other factors. It surprised us. We've had this question quite a few times since that came out, and there are reasons. One reason is that we weren't able to do reverberation tests and all that sort of thing in a way that an acoustician would. They gave us a suitcase, they said it'd take an hour, that we'd have to let off a gun or something and clear the room and all this sort of thing, and it just wasn't feasible. So we measured things like the finishes and the size and the shape and so on. So that's one reason. Maybe if we're able to measure it in a more sort of traditional way, it would come out. But I don't know, because actually our other argument is that most of the classrooms had acoustic tiles on the ceiling, had carpeting on the floor, weren't that big, and the teachers didn't seem to have any difficulty making themselves heard. We've seen a contrasting situation in Norway recently with very large spaces, hard flooring, lots of glass, and I can imagine that might be problematic. We know that there was a study done in the UK of, where was it? It was wasn't Kent, it's somewhere around there, of acoustic spaces in schools, and they showed huge improvements. But they showed huge improvements from a classroom with a hard ceiling, a hard floor, and glass walls on two sides. That's not the typical classroom. So I'm not saying acoustics isn't important, can't be a problem, but in the classrooms we looked at, it typically didn't seem to be, and it just didn't show up in the stats.
Okay, the next question on the top part of the auditorium, please.
Hi, thank you, Peter, for a fascinating presentation. Suzanne Wilkinson from the University of Auckland. Just talking about the difference between boys and girls and whether you found anything. I had read quite a while ago that boys liked cold, no fuss rooms, whereas girls like warm, fussy rooms. Yeah. Have you got any comments on that? And also the difference between primary and high school, whether you've noticed any differences there?
Okay.
Thank you.
So, two things there. We focused on primary, so we haven't looked at secondary schools. We wanted to. We didn't get funding, to be honest. It would have been really interesting because they have subject-specific classrooms there, and they have teenagers, and they have lots more going on in the spaces between the classrooms, and you think that would have been quite different in some respects. Probably similar in terms of naturalists, level of stimulation, but I don't know. So we weren't able to look at that. In terms of boys and girls, we had gender in there as a factor, and it didn't figure. We were surprised, but it simply did not figure as important as the other things that did come through in the analysis. So we did expect there to be a difference. The decision to say that, for instance, the mantra is that girls tend to do better than boys, so that's probably true, but in terms of their improvement over the year, it didn't show up. So, yeah, all the gender-specific design that people talk about, I'm not so sure myself.
Okay, was there a third request? Yes, on the front row. Is the microphone over there? Please use that.
I'm Atilla Bikbaş from Istanbul Technical University and Istanbul Medipol University, and I am wondering about, is there any simulation model at your university, because that's very good research for benchmarking all the criteria for the built environment for the future projects. You develop any simulation model for calculating all the built environment criteria for the new projects?
Okay, so the answer is no. At least we haven't got one with this sort of factor in it. Quite a lot of the factors here are easily measurable, and some of them aren't. So for instance, level of stimulation, visual stimulation is hard to measure, so we use two people to make an assessment and then compare it. So that would be more difficult to put into a model. Having said that, we're also doing a bit of work with Fourier analysis where we're starting to be able to replicate some of those findings. So not at the moment, but I do think you're right, we could have intelligent systems that help designers take those things into account. Can I just cheat and say, in relation to the boys and girls, incidentally, it's a fantastic example of the difference between preference and actually the functional impact. So boys and girls probably do like some different things in very broad terms, but in terms of the functional impact, it doesn't really show up.
Thank you so much. Help me appreciate Dr.